The old Ford pickup cut through water that had no business being on a road. Rain hammered the cab sideways and hard. Lauren Brooks sat in the passenger seat, soaked, shoulders shaking under a borrowed jacket. The man at the wheel, the same single dad she had laughed at only hours ago in a parking lot, turned the wheel 1/4 inch at a time. Her Tesla was sinking half a mile behind them. Her eyes moved across the dashboard, past readouts she did not understand, and stopped at one small word someone had carved deep into the wood. Annabelle. If you believe people are not always what their truck looks like, leave a comment below and stay with us. 7 hours earlier, the sun fell warm across the western face of the Grove Park Inn, glinting off the brass railing where valets gathered tickets for the annual benefit for Mission Children's Hospital. The afternoon was unseasonably mild for early November in Asheville, and a few of the ballroom windows had been propped open to let the breeze in. Matthew Holloway pulled his old Ford pickup into the secondary lot and stepped out in clean flannel, dark jeans, and a pair of boots that had seen better years. He came around to the passenger side, lifted Emma down, and held her hand. She was 8, small for her age, with serious gray eyes and 2 braids her father had not quite finished evenly. A volunteer in a fleece vest waved from the side door. "Matt, same lot as last year?" "Same lot, Pete. Bring Emma by the cocoa table when you have a minute." Inside, the ballroom held a low hum of money being polite. White cloth tables. A silent auction along the east wall. Lauren Brooks stood near the front with Marcus Lane and Walter Hayes, one of her board members, and behind them, a young woman in a navy dress held Lauren's coat folded over one arm. Hannah Reed had been Marcus Lane's executive assistant for 4 years. She rarely spoke unless asked. Lauren was the guest of honor. In 10 minutes, she would step to the small stage and announce that Brooks Motor Group, founded in 1978 by her father, was opening a 3rd North Carolina dealership in Asheville. She had practiced the line 3 times in the car. For now, she drifted along the silent auction tables, scanning the bid sheets without much interest. She had reached for the pen at the fishing trip package, a half day with a local guide on the French Broad River, when a hand reached for the same pen from the other side. She looked up. The man across from her was tall, weathered, calm. He met her eyes for half a second, said nothing, and let go of the pen. She took it. He stepped back, and she watched him cross the room to a quiet girl by the cocoa table. She wrote down a number she did not particularly want, then moved on. 5 minutes later, near the open window, Marcus tilted toward her with a half smile. "Walter and I were just talking about your demographic problem out here. Look at that lot." He nodded toward the parking area below, where Matt was now lifting Emma into the cab of the old Ford. "Half those trucks are older than her." Walter Hayes laughed politely. Lauren glanced down. The breeze pushed warm against her face. "Maybe step 1 of our marketing plan," she said lightly. "Should be teaching them what a sedan is." Walter laughed harder. Marcus's smile widened. Below the window, Matt did not turn around. He set Emma in her seat, latched her harness, and brushed a strand of hair from her face. Emma had heard. She looked up at her father with a small frown. He squeezed her hand once and said nothing. Lauren glanced down a moment longer than she had meant to, and her gaze caught the little girl's just as the child turned back to look at her. 2 full seconds, something in Lauren shifted, the way a glass shifts on a tilted shelf without falling. Marcus said something about timing for her speech. She turned away. At 6 o'clock the same evening, Matt Holloway stood barefoot on the porch of his small cedar house in Black Mountain, reading a Davis Vantage Pro weather station that did not belong on most porches in Buncombe County. The barometric pressure was dropping faster than the noon model had predicted. He pulled up the National Weather Service mesoanalysis on his phone, watched the convergence band tighten, and dialed Ray Sutton. "Ray, the front is running 4 hours ahead. Old Ford area is going to take it first. Bring her over, Maddie. Stove's hot." On the way, inside, Emma was already pulling her overnight bag onto her shoulder without being told. She had packed it that morning when her father had stopped to listen to the wind at breakfast. He knelt to zip her jacket. "Be careful with the wind on Batcave Road," she said. "Always." He kissed her forehead, lifted her overnight bag, and walked her out to the truck. Across town, in a low-ceilinged restaurant on Town Mountain Road, Lauren Brooks was finishing the second course of a dinner she did not want to be at. Marcus Lane had insisted on a 3rd bottle of wine, and Walter Hayes was telling a story he had told twice that month. Lauren's phone vibrated. A message from Hannah Reed. "Miss Brooks, when it's convenient, could we speak privately?" "It's important." She read it twice, set the phone face down, and reached for her water. By 7:30, the rain that had been a drizzle was a heavy, steady sheet. By 8, the windows of the restaurant rattled. Marcus kept ordering. Lauren finally pushed her chair back at 9 and said she was leaving. Marcus did not stand. Walter waved. She got into her Tesla in the lot, brushed water from her hair, and let the navigation route her home. The map flashed a yellow alert for the interstate. The system rerouted her to a back road as a faster alternate. She took it, back in Black Mountain. Matt had dropped Emma at Ray's. He pulled his jacket from the hook by the door. A faded field jacket with a small Noah patch on the left shoulder and a smaller pin under the collar. A Coast Guard search and rescue device worn flat by years. He turned the truck's main bus on. The cab lit up like a small ship. He keyed the dispatch frequency. Holloway here. Inbound to my old patch. A woman's voice came back across the static. Lieutenant Commander Holloway, that you? Civilian 8 years. Marge. But I'm rolling toward Old Fort. Possible structural at the community center. Pregnancy in distress. Volunteers en route, but the lower roads are flooding. Copy. 20 minutes. He rolled out into the rain. 7 miles past the last gas station, Lauren's headlights caught the silhouette of a fallen oak across both lanes. She braked hard. The Tesla stopped 4 feet from the trunk. She tried to reverse. In the 90 seconds she had paused, a creek behind her had topped its bank and filled the low spot of road. The car's wheels lost traction in the second slow inch of brown water. The dashboard chimed something she did not have time to read. She stepped out into rain that fell sideways. Her phone showed no bars. She climbed onto the hood, pressed the satellite emergency button on her key fob, and watched 2 yellow headlights crawl into view from the direction she had come. The headlights belonged to the Ford. Matt pulled even with the Tesla, lowered the passenger window halfway, and spoke once. "Climb down on your right." Doors open. Lauren slid off the hood, found her footing in water that was now over her ankles, and worked her way around to the truck's passenger side. The cabin light flickered on as she opened the door. She froze for a heartbeat, recognizing the face inside, the same man from the silent auction table. He did not flinch. He did not seem to recognize her at all, or chose not to. He waited. She climbed in. The door shut behind her with a heavy, well-fitted thump. The cab smelled faintly of coffee and warm electronics. Lauren took in what she could. A weather radar display glowed soft amber under the center console. A NOAA radio chattered low. Recessed emergency lights ran along the inside of the roof. The seats were the original cloth, worn smooth at the corners. The seatbelt across her chest had 5 points, and it locked into place with the soft click of something military. Matt put the truck into low gear and rolled forward. He drove slowly, his eyes shifting between the road and the trunks of the trees along the shoulder, where a slow line of darker bark showed how high the water had been minutes earlier. For a long minute, Lauren did not speak. The only sound was the wipers and the steady, calm voice of a dispatcher on the radio, asking someone 50 miles east about debris. "Who are you?" she finally said. Matt did not look over. "Tonight, I'm just a guy with a truck." The radio cut in, sharper this time. A different woman. "Holloway, partial roof collapse at the Old Fort Community Center. 12 to 15 sheltering. 1 late-term pregnancy. We can't get the fire engine through Stearns Creek Crossing." Matt keyed his mic. "I'm 7 minutes out. I have the truck and 1 civilian." "Copy that, Commander." The word landed in the cab without ceremony. Lauren turned her head. He did not look at her. After a moment he said, "I can drop you at Ray Sutton's station 2 miles up the way. Generator, coffee, dry blankets. Or you ride with me to Old Fort." He paused for the wipers. "Your call." She thought about Marcus, still on his 3rd bottle of wine somewhere behind her. She thought about how her whole life she had chosen the option that did not require her to be near things she could not control. The cabin was warm. Her shoulders had stopped shaking. "I'll ride," she said. He nodded once. They drove. Twice he slowed at culverts she had not even seen, leaned to read the water level by the cant of a road sign, and adjusted his speed by the smallest fraction. Once a thick branch crashed down 100 feet ahead of them. He had already begun to brake before it landed. "How did you know?" she asked. "The wind shifted." Lauren looked over at him in the dim green glow of the dash. He was not handsome the way her board members were handsome. He was something else. He was a person who knew exactly what to do with the next 60 seconds. The radio crackled again. A new voice this time. A woman. Calmer. Older. "Holloway. Pregnant woman is at 6 minutes between contractions. Matt pushed the truck a little harder. On approach, the cab tilted as they took the last bend, and the half-broken roof of the old Fort Community Center came into view in the headlights. They arrived at 2240. Inside the small one-story building, 14 people sat in a tight circle of folding chairs around a single battery lamp, 2 elderly residents, 3 small children, the pregnant woman on the floor with her back propped against the wall, and the rest assorted adults, all soaked, most quiet. The east end of the roof had collapsed inward over what had been the storage room. Wind was driving rain through the broken edge in steady horizontal sheets. Matt moved through them in 60 seconds. He tapped 2 beams with the back of his knuckles, listened to the sound, and made a single mental note about where not to stand. He spoke briefly to the pregnant woman, asked one question, and put a folded blanket under her hips without explaining. He keyed the radio and asked the Old Fort Volunteer Fire Department how soon they could reach First Baptist Church up the hill. The reply was 30 minutes. He asked if anyone on scene could drive a 5-ton. 2 voices answered yes. While he worked, Lauren stood near the wall, feeling useless and very visible. A woman with mud streaked across her cheek pressed a small body into Lauren's arms. "Just hold her, please. I have to help with the panel." Lauren had never held a child this small. She braced her arms wrong, adjusted, braced them right. The little girl, 2 at most, looked up at her with the round, serious stillness of a child too tired to cry. Lauren said nothing. The child did not say anything either. Then the north window blew inward. Lauren did not think. She turned her body so her shoulder caught the glass, ducked her head over the child's, and held still until the wind eased. When she looked up, a small fragment of glass had sliced the back of her hand, and the child's hair was warm against her cheek. Matt had seen. He did not speak. He looked at her for 1 second longer than he needed to, and then went back to the panel. The first evacuation went at 23:10. He took the pregnant woman, both elderly residents, and the woman with the mud-streaked cheek up the hill to First Baptist Church through water that no other vehicle on the property could have crossed. The truck came back. He took the 3 children and a young father next. He came back again. By the 4th run, the rain had eased into something only ordinary. Lauren rode on the 3rd run with 2 of the children on her lap, the small girl from the window still clinging to her shirt. She did not try to make them feel better. She just held them. The little girl whispered something Lauren did not catch. When she stepped down at the church, the pastor took one look at her, handed her a dry sweater and said, "Bathroom is down the hall. We have soup." Lauren went to the bathroom, washed the blood off her hand, looked at her face in the mirror, and did not recognize the woman looking back. When she came out, Matt was reloading the truck for one more pass. She walked over. "Anyone left?" "1 man and a dog. He won't leave the dog. Dog is bigger than him. I'll help with the dog." He almost smiled. "Get in." At 5:30 in the morning, the storm had moved east into Tennessee, and the air over Asheville was suddenly clean and still. Sutton's Auto and Fuel, a low cinder-block building with a single working pump and a stove that had been older than its owner, had become the unofficial command post for everything that had happened between Black Mountain and Old Fort. A faded Subaru wagon turned into the lot. Ray Sutton got out, walked around to the passenger side, and lifted Emma down. She had slept in her boots. She woke up the moment she saw the old Ford parked at the side of the building, slid out of Ray's hands, and ran across the gravel. Matt knelt before she reached him and caught her against his chest. He held her for 10 seconds without speaking, ran a hand over her hair, and checked her face the way a parent checks for things that do not show. She did not say anything either. She had her father's habit of saving words. He stood, holding her on one hip. "Em, this is Miss Brooks." Lauren was sitting on the low step outside the office, still in his jacket, a paper cup of coffee gone cold in her hands. She rose halfway. Emma looked at her. Same gray eyes as her father. Same long pause. "You were the one in the parking lot." Lauren felt the cold cup in her hands. "Yes." Emma considered this for a moment, the way she considered weather. "Daddy says trucks don't have feelings," she said finally. "People do." She slid down from Matt's hip and walked into the office for Coco. Lauren did not move for a long moment. Ray Sutton came out with a wool army blanket and draped it over her shoulders without ceremony. He sat down on the step beside her. Through the open door, they could see Emma climb onto a stool by the cocoa machine. "He pulled 14 people out tonight," Ray said quietly, watching the road. "He'll be home before noon, and he'll sleep maybe 4 hours, and then he'll act like it was nothing." "Who is he?" Really? Ray smiled, but did not turn his head. That's his story to tell. Or not. Lauren's phone, which had been black for hours, lit up against her thigh. She took it out. 38 missed calls. 14 texts. The first was from Marcus Lane, sent at 3 in the morning. Where the hell are you? I tried to cover for you all night. Emergency board session called for 10 over your conduct. Call me. The second was from Hannah Reed, sent at 6 minutes past 6. Miss Brooks, you need to come to the office before the meeting. I'll be in the small conference room with documents. Signed, H.R. Lauren read it twice. Ray watched her face change and did not ask. I have to go, she said. You sure you should be driving? My car is somewhere under a foot of mud. I'll get you a ride. He stood, walked into the office, and came back 2 minutes later with a set of keys. Take the CRV around back. It's my niece's. She left it here last week. Bring it back when you can. Lauren did not ask any more questions. She took the keys. She kept the jacket. At 9:45 in the morning, Lauren Brooks pulled into the executive lot of Brooks Motor Group on Patton Avenue. She had not changed clothes. Her shoes still left small flecks of dried mud on the polished floor of the lobby. She rode the elevator up alone. Hannah Reed was already in the small conference room with the folder in front of her. She rose when Lauren walked in. Sit, please, Miss Brooks. We have 11 minutes. Lauren sat. I have been Marcus Lane's executive assistant for 4 years. For the last 6 months, I have been keeping copies of every email and contract addendum he asked me to alter. I retained an attorney in September. I was waiting for the right moment. Last night, when Mr. Lane texted me at 3 in the morning to say that he was going to, and I quote, deal with you this morning over the storm incident, I decided I had waited long enough. She opened the folder. Wire transfers. Falsified invoices. An email thread between Marcus and a subcontractor named in 3 of the missing audits. Lauren looked at the documents, then at Hannah, then back at the documents. Why now? She said quietly. Why not 3 months ago? Because 3 months ago I was not sure you would believe me over him. Lauren did not have an answer to that. She closed the folder. Has anyone else seen this? Your father has copies. So does my attorney. So does the United States Attorney's Office for the Western District. Lauren absorbed this. Her father, Bill Brooks, 71, semi-retired, executive chairman in title only for the last 2 years. She had not known he had been paying attention. Why didn't he tell me? He wanted you to hear it from the person who lived through it. At 10 o'clock exactly, the board convened in the main room. Marcus Lane spoke first. He had a version of last night ready. Lauren had abandoned a critical investor dinner. Lauren had driven into a flash flood warning. Lauren had been unreachable for 9 hours. Lauren had embarrassed the company in front of a developer who was now reconsidering. He moved that the board place her on indefinite administrative leave. Lauren did not interrupt. When Marcus finished, the door opened, and Hannah Reed walked in with her folder. Marcus's face changed in a way Lauren would remember for years. Hannah spoke for 4 minutes without raising her voice. She set each page in front of the board members one by one. She did not look at Marcus. At the head of the long table, in a charcoal suit and the same wristwatch he had worn at her college graduation, Bill Brooks sat with his hands folded. He had not said a word. He let Hannah finish. Then he looked at Marcus and said, very quietly, sit down, Marcus. The vote took less than 2 minutes. 7-2. Administrative suspension pending criminal review. The 2 dissenting votes were 2 old friends of Marcus's who would resign within the month. When the room cleared, Lauren stayed in her chair. She looked down at the field jacket still draped across her shoulders. She turned the collar up, stitched in faded thread along the inside edge, where only the wearer would ever see it, were letters that read LCDRM Holloway, USCG SAR. Her father came around the long table, set one hand on her shoulder, and did not speak. She did not look up. She held the collar between her fingers for a long time. At 6:30 that evening, Lauren turned onto a gravel road in Black Mountain that did not appear on most maps. She was driving Ray's niece's Honda. She had not stopped at home. She was still wearing the jacket. The house was small, cedar, set back among rhododendron. A single porch light was on. The old Ford was in the driveway. Emma opened the door before she knocked. Daddy, the lady from the truck is here. Matt came to the door, drying his hands on a shop rag. He was in the same shirt as the night before, but he had slept, or at least lain still. He stepped onto the porch and pulled the door mostly closed behind him. They stood for a minute without speaking. The early dark was full of cold mountain air. and the smell of wood smoke from somebody's chimney down the road. Lauren held out an envelope. "What is it?" "A pledge. I had it drawn up this afternoon. Brooks Motor Group is donating one of the new heavy-duty mobile response vehicles to the Old Fort volunteer team. Fully outfitted. Title transfer next week. There is one condition." He waited. "The truck has to be named Annabelle too." He went very still. "I saw the name on your dashboard last night. I asked Ray today who Annabelle was. He told me only that the answer was not his to give. So I made an assumption. If I assumed wrong, tear up the pledge. If I assumed right, the team gets the truck, and the name stays where it belongs." It took him a long time to speak. "Thank you. But don't put my name anywhere near it. Give it straight to the team. That's how it's already written." He folded the envelope and put it in his back pocket. "I would like to buy you dinner," she said. "Miss Brooks, Lauren, you don't owe me anything, and I don't think you would care for the man you haven't actually met yet. I'd like the chance to find out." He looked down. Emma was sitting on the bottom step of the porch, pretending to study a small flat stone in her hand. She was, of course, listening. She did not look up. After a moment, her shoulders moved in the smallest possible shrug. Matt looked back at Lauren. "Coffee. Saturday morning. There's a place on Cherry Street." "What time?" 8. She nodded once and turned to go down the steps. As she reached the gravel, Emma called after her without lifting her eyes from the stone. "Bring something warm. It's going to rain." Lauren stopped. She looked back at the small, serious girl on the porch step. She had not smiled in 24 hours. She smiled now, quietly, for half a second. "Thank you, Emma." She drove back down the mountain very slowly. She kept the jacket on the seat beside her. At the bottom of the road, she pulled into a gas station that was not Sutton's, parked under a flickering light, and called her father. He picked up on the second ring. "Dad." "Lauren, why didn't you tell me you were watching Marcus?" He took his time. "Because you needed to find out what kind of CEO you were when you didn't know I was watching. And because Hannah Reed needed to know what kind of woman she had bet her career on." She closed her eyes. "I love you, Dad. I love you, Lauren. Get some sleep." She did not, for a long time. 4 weeks passed. Saturday coffee became Saturday coffee and Sunday walk. Sunday walk became Sunday walk and Wednesday dinner. Matt cooked at his own house. Emma taught Lauren how to cut cornbread the way her grandmother had cut it, in narrow rectangles, never squares. Lauren learned. She was a slow student in some things and a fast one in others. She learned in small pieces about Annabelle, about the Hurricane Michael response in 2018, about the Mexico Beach call sign that went silent, about the 8 months Matt spent unable to drive past a weather station without pulling over, about the garage behind the Cedar House, where he quietly built mobile response vehicles for 2 nonprofit search and rescue groups and refused to sign for any of them. She learned that he had not introduced anyone to Emma in 8 years. The federal investigation moved fast. Marcus Lane was indicted on 5 counts of wire fraud and 1 count of obstruction. Hannah Reed became the government's central witness. Lauren restructured the company. She offered Hannah the position of chief of staff and gave her a real office with a real door. Hannah accepted on a Tuesday and brought a small succulent to put on the desk. Bill Brooks formally stepped down to chairman emeritus the same week. He moved his books out of the corner office and into a small one down the hall that had better light. Brooks Motor Group launched the Brooks Foundation for Community Preparedness, an independent nonprofit focused on disaster response in the rural Appalachian counties. Lauren put the foundation's headquarters in Asheville, not Atlanta. The board grumbled. She did not change her mind. One Thursday evening in mid-December, Matt and Lauren were eating barbecue at a chain diner outside town. Emma was at Ray's. A man in a plain coat with the unmistakable bearing of someone who had spent 20 years in a uniform crossed the room and stopped at their booth. "Commander Holloway." Matt looked up. He set his fork down. "Office of Mobile Response Program, sir. We're standing up the new federal framework next quarter. Your name came up in 3 different rooms. 4 quarterly trips to Washington. No field deployment unless you ask. We'd like you to think about it." He set a business card on the corner of the table. "Don't decide tonight." He nodded once to Lauren and walked out into the parking lot. Lauren did not speak. She watched Matt look at the card without picking it up. She watched him think about Emma, about the Cedar House, about the long, quiet years, about a part of his life he had buried. She watched him think about her. He did not ask her opinion. She did not offer one. In the parking lot, before he started the truck, he said, "Lauren, Yes, you know what that card means. It means you might travel. It means I might leave. I know what it means, Matt. He turned the key. The old Ford rumbled. Whatever you decide is the right call, she said quietly. I am not in this to keep you small. He looked at her, longer than usual. He did not answer with words. He just put the truck in gear and drove her home. 2 days later, he called the number on the card. By the middle of January, he had accepted the position. 4 quarterly trips to Washington, consulting only, home base in Black Mountain. Ray would help with Emma when he traveled. Emma had asked exactly 2 questions about it and had then returned to feeding the old cat, Hatch, who had refused to learn any tricks. It was a Sunday afternoon late in the month. The cold light came in low and yellow across the porch. Lauren sat on the cedar steps with her coat unbuttoned. Matt was at the side of the truck with the hood up, doing something to a hose clamp. Emma was in the side yard, attempting once again to convince Hatch to sit, with the patient seriousness of someone trying to teach a stone to swim. Matt closed the hood. He wiped his hands on a shop rag and walked over and sat down beside Lauren on the step. He held out a small object in his palm. It was a challenge coin, dark metal, worn smooth at the edges. The face carried the Coast Guard search and rescue device. The back had 2 letters cut into it, A and H. My old crew used to give these to people we trusted in the field, he said. I haven't given mine to anyone in 8 years. She took it in both hands. She did not turn it over right away. She let it sit warm against her palms. He looked at the yard, not at her. I'm not good at saying things. I know, she said. You don't have to. They did not touch. They did not kiss. They sat with their shoulders maybe 2 inches apart on the second step of his porch. Down the yard, Emma gave up on the cat and walked toward them, dragging Hatch in her arms in a way the cat clearly did not approve of. Emma climbed up between them, sat down, dropped the cat in her lap, and leaned her head against her father's arm. Without looking at Lauren, she rested her small free hand on Lauren's wrist, the way she would have rested it on a railing or a familiar branch. Lauren did not move her hand for a long time. The old Ford sat in front of the porch, same dents, same faded paint. The late sun caught the edge of the side mirror and made a long, warm bar of light across the gravel. Matt watched the light without speaking. You'll be all right when I'm in Washington, he said, more to the air than to her. I'll be all right. Emma will need someone to pick her up from school on Wednesdays. I can do Wednesdays. He did not say thank you. He nodded once. The thank you was inside the nod. After a while, Emma got tired of holding Hatch and let the cat down. Hatch immediately walked over and sat on Lauren's foot. Emma watched this with the slow satisfaction of a child whose hypothesis had been quietly confirmed. The sun moved another half-inch across the gravel. Lauren closed her hand around the coin. 12 months later, on a cool, clear afternoon in Pack Square Park in downtown Asheville, the city held a ceremony to honor the volunteer search and rescue teams of Western North Carolina and to mark the second phase of the Brooks Foundation for Community Preparedness. A small wooden stage had been built under the old magnolia. About 200 people stood in folding chairs and along the brick walks. Lauren Brooks stepped up to the microphone in a navy coat and unfolded a single page from her pocket. She did not look down at it once. She did not mention Matthew Holloway. She did not mention the storm by name. She talked for not quite 5 minutes about the people in any community who hold the line when no one is watching, about the cost of believing that the value of a thing is the same as its price, and about the night, 1 year ago, when a person she would not have known to look for had pulled her out of water she had no business being in. Then she did something the foundation had not announced. I would like to ask Mr. Ray Sutton to come up here, please. Ray, who had assumed he was there to drink coffee, walked up the wooden steps in his old field coat and his only tie. Lauren handed him a framed certificate. For those who hold the line when no one is looking, she said. From all of us. Ray took the certificate with both hands. He did not say anything into the microphone. He looked out at the crowd, found Matt in the 3rd row, and gave one small nod. Matt nodded back. After the ceremony, the 3 of them walked together toward the parking lot. Emma was 9 now, taller, her braids straighter. She held her father's hand on one side, and the framed certificate she had insisted on carrying for Ray on the other. The old Ford was at the curb, same dents, same faded paint, same engine that started with a small cough and then settled. Emma climbed into the middle of the bench seat first. She turned and patted the passenger seat once. That's your seat, she said to Lauren. Lauren climbed in without saying anything. She had stopped being surprised by Emma. Matt started the engine. He checked his mirrors. which were already adjusted because no one else drove this truck. He pulled out onto Patton Avenue and turned east toward the mountains. Lauren looked out the side window. The late afternoon sun made a long, warm bar of light across the back of her right hand, where she was holding the worn metal of the coin between her thumb and her first finger. She had stopped putting it down. Matt's eyes met hers in the rearview mirror for half a second. He looked back at the road. Emma leaned her head against her father's shoulder. The old Ford crossed the bridge over the French Broad River, turned onto the road toward Black Mountain, and climbed into the soft gold light of an October that had not yet decided to become November. Neither of them had been looking. But the storm had brought them home, and the old truck had carried them the rest of the way.